Welcome to Brightly, You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. We're just a couple curious people interested in friendship, ideas, and personal development. This is a show that strives to speak to the curious, to those who long to explore new ways of thinking, reflecting, and being. Through sharing our experiences, friendship, and interests, we hope to impact you to step more brightly into yourself, inch by inch.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Amy.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to be talking to you today. I love Fridays. I know we post Mondays, but I look forward to this.
I do too. Yeah, in fact, this morning I was like, oh, it's Friday. Okay, great, good. I love it. Yes,
and you can see it on your face. I love it. You're shining brightly yourself today.
Yeah. Well, makeup and a light ring help, right?
Yes. Gotta have those influencer eyes.
Yeah. So opposite of shining bright. Last week, we kind of talked about stepping into that darker side, the shadow side, addressing recurring patterns, things we'd like to just like rise from. So did any other shadows come up for you? I know you mentioned like a recurring shadow for you.
I mean, I have a few.
I'm right there with you.
The one that I've been directly trying to work on it in a way that's actually caused more shadows to come up.
That's the tricky thing about them.
Yeah. I was not approaching it in the right way. I was taking a very, I'd say more Western, stance on how to solve and address my issues and how I want to improve myself and just different goals I want to achieve. So the shadow I want to talk about today, or kind of what inspired the overall topic for today, a Brighten Up, was when, everything with the year that was 2020 started to happen in the US in March. I was lucky enough that I felt secure in my job. I had long-term concerns, but I didn't have any immediate needs with that. And I'm an introvert, so I kind of looked forward to getting to cancel some events or not having to go into, an 18-story building every day in the heart of downtown. I was looking at this as an opportunity to kind of take a negative and make it a positive in my life. That there were a lot of personal goals I wanted to achieve, specifically around, my appearance and how I presented myself out in the world. And I got really attracted to this concept of a glow up. Have you heard of that?
Well, I only heard of it through you. I had never heard of it before. I think I'd heard of a concept like that, but not the actual thing itself. So yeah, you're who I heard it through. And I love the term glow up.
Right?
Yeah.
It sounds so attractive, right? It's a glow up, and I don't know if it was specific to, the year that we had, or if it kind of existed before this. And this is just a lot of people had the similar idea that I did, whether they were laid off or not, we suddenly found ourselves with time,
Yeah, you had this space. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to me, a glow up was, you kind of, you go into your den for 30, 60, 90 days or whatever, and you come out a different person, and you just,
if only it were that easy.
Right? Isn't that easy? So for me, a glow up, like I said, was really around appearance. I've had some struggles with my weight my whole life for various reasons. And, as an adult, just become more and more sedentary. I sit at a desk all day. I spend quite a bit of time in my car going back and forth. And then you get home and the motivation just wasn't there. And we live in Minnesota. We're in a northern climate. So I really only have so many months out of the year where I can comfortably do the things outside I want to do. Or even, I'm not too fearful of the snow, of the ice, of the cold. I do okay in it. But my preferred hiking locations have become cross-country ski trails. Like I just don't have access to some of the habits and routines and preferences I had. But so I wanted to come out a new and improved person. I wanted to take this time and I wanted to invest in myself. What actually happened with that was a lot of anxiety analysis paralysis and depression.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of unnecessary pressure on myself. And, as I said, it was a really Western concept and ideal to me because we were in a pandemic. We're in a pandemic. I don't want this episode to become about that, but we have a lot going on at the collective level and the personal level, right? Like it's been a year.
You might have the space and the time to do this glow up, but you're completely eliminating like the stress and anxiety and fear that go along with the whole pandemic, right?
Yeah. And for everything that I thought was going to improve in my life to make this space, what actually happened where there were new things that replaced it that I didn't see coming.
Oh, like
Loneliness.
what?
Loneliness.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And the Surgeon General has even talked about the epidemic that loneliness is even before, social distancing started, physical distancing started. Men go through it at a greater rate than women just because their core relationships are just different. They don't tend to get it the same way other people do. And so for me, I have a really good group of core friends, you being one of them that I love to talk to. But what happened was the pandemic shifted everybody's roles and responsibilities so much that all of my friends have children, have spouses, have jobs that were affected by this. So they were working more. They're now daycare. They're also teachers. They're to the point where if they get moments to themselves, they need them to themselves. And so I found myself, looking forward at first to being like, oh, I'm going to have this extra time to myself that I needed before as an introvert and I wasn't always getting. And now I have too much. And the ways that I filled that before, just going to work, banter, seeing people in person, walking in halls, even my favorite radio show, they were canceled due to budgetary, just changes in radio and all that. And so much changed. And I kept trying to force the glow up to happen. And as we started working on this podcast and I started trying to figure out like how can I make my life different? How can I achieve these goals in a different way? As I kind of prepared for the end of the year, just kind of reflected, I realized that part of the anxiety and depression around some of these goals and things I wanted to change and do better, it was all around trying to fix or improve something I am.
Yeah.
Or trying to force myself to quickly be something I already wasn't. And I just decided, like, what if I focus instead on intentionally building who I wanted to be? And not just, I wish I worked out more, but like, why do I work out, and having, kind of core reasons beyond appearance. Or, I'm getting older and I should just do it all already,
It seems so much gentler too when you say intentionally building who I want to be. It just seems like a much more gentle, organic process than the glow up.
Yeah.
Make sure you work out this many times a week and whatever else would be involved with that.
Well, and I just kind of sat down and realized too, as I kind of reflected on, at the end of the year, I really like this free resource a team, I think in the Netherlands, puts out called the Yearly Compass, where it's a lot on reflecting. And I just realized a lot of the goals I was working towards weren't really the goals I actually wanted anymore. And that I just had
how did you know that?
I just realized I was forcing it, that the motivation wasn't there, the interest wasn't there.
So not just the glow up, but other goals as well?
And I think some of those goals fit into the glow up, but it became around feeling bad that I hadn't achieved that or accomplished it. And it just became a task, another thing I had to do instead of something I was excited about and that was feeding me and moving me towards who I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And what I want my future to be. It was all of my goals were so focused in the past. And what do they say? If that's where depression is, and if you're too far in the future, that's where anxiety is. And I think that's what a glow up did to me. It just enhanced the depression and anxiety around those goals.
So I want to go back to what you said about the goals you were working on were rooted in the past. Is that what you said?
Yeah. A lot of my reasons for, wanting to run a marathon someday, or, wanting, I've had, being vegan, trying to be vegan. I'm an ethical vegetarian. I'm there. That's not a struggle for me at all. But I've been
Mhm.
really trying to push the veganism thing, and I keep revisiting it every year, and I keep failing at it. And finally I sit down and realize I don't, the
It's
things,
okay.
it's okay. But what interested in me about veganism, and like, I have found other ways to approach that part of my diet. I have other health goals now. Like, let's just release it. Like, it's not something you have to. Why has it just keeps carrying over from year to year.
You think sometimes too, it can be, it might be someone else's goal who's close to you, that sometimes you take that goal on as well. Like maybe you see someone else doing this thing and you're like, that seems really cool. And I want to do that too,
Oh,
but it's not
absolutely.
really. Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. How about you?
Well, yeah. Constantly.
And is it the people in your circle, or is it social media, TV, movies,
Everything,
press? It's yeah, I would
all the
agree.
above. Yeah, I would
So,
agree too. What I find funny, and this is off topic, is that I became a vegetarian and you were so great when I became a vegetarian and helped me and gave me all kinds of resources. And then you said, hey, there's this, January, like this week long thing.
veganuary.
Yes, veganuary. So if you're a carnivore, to eat vegetarian for a week, if you're vegetarian, to eat vegan for a week. And I asked my youngest, who was also doing the very vegetarian with me, he's like, yeah, let's do it. And then
And you guys excelled at it. Like,
we
you
did
took it and
how
you ran with it
we
further than I
did.
ever have. It was
But you know
amazing.
what? Nathan actually went back to, he still has mainly a plant-based diet and he doesn't do dairy, but he will do like eggs and fish and things like that
Yep.
now. But yeah, so that's just funny, is that, so it
You
wasn't
have to
really
find your
supposed to
why.
be your goal,
No,
right?
no. At the time when it came into my life, it absolutely was. It fit so perfectly. But we're now 8 years in the future, and I'm able to source my food differently, and
Right.
just achieve goals differently. And I know more than I did 8 years ago,
Mhm.
and I'm a different person. But so for the Brighten Up, it became really reframing that glow up. And I love the term. And if it works for people, great. This is not meant to shame anybody. But instead of just reframing my goals under the glow up, I also decided, and to brand it with our podcast, to call it a Brighten Up,
I know,
because
I love it.
I don't just want to achieve some level or skill or appearance, but I want to brighten up my whole life and my whole being.
I just, that just makes me so happy, because if anyone were to hear that statement, of course they would want to do that as well. Who wouldn't want to do that, right? Who wouldn't
Yeah.
want to brighten up their whole life? And your life is not how you look, right? That might be part of your life, but it's not just how you look, how you present yourself. It's so much more nuanced and varied and levels. And so I love that. I'm
And
excited.
oh, I'm glad, because I think I've mentioned this before, but I occasionally have these days. I call them my bright and shiny days.
Yeah.
And it's just where you wake up and life just kind of feels effortless. You're naturally in a good mood. But what I like about the concept of the Brighten Up, and we'll get into it a little bit later in the episode more in depth, but it's not just me, it's about the changes I make in me brightens up others too. And so on my
Ooh.
bright and shiny days, it's not just that I feel great and that I feel, like this bright shine. It's not about trying to get people to look at me. It's not about what I achieved that day. I interact with people differently in a way where I feel like it
Mhm.
becomes contagious. And what's frustrated me, especially in 2020, was I don't know how to make them happen. It feels like the times when I'm trying to force it is when they don't happen. I was like, is it hormones? Is it the stars? Is it the moon? Like what
Oh,
cycles are possibly affecting this?
okay. So you have bright and shiny days where you wake up and everything is just
And it
falling
just happens.
great, and
And
it just
so
happens and you don't know why.
with the Brighten Up, it's figuring out what it is about who I am on those days that I like so much. and that,
Oh, I love it. Who
right?
you are, that you like so much that then you can just present yourself out into the world and everybody just absorbs it and reflects it back.
Exactly.
Ah,
So the question for the podcast then today for all the listeners, but especially for you, I'm so curious, how intentional are you with the person you are? And I don't we mentioned this in the first episode, but if
yeah.
this is your first episode, if you haven't heard it, Amy and I do have a bit of an age gap. So I'm in my mid 30s, you're at a different stage of your life.
I'm
So
62. It's okay. We can say it. I'm okay with it.
but so I really want to hear from your perspective
Yeah.
too, because you've done this. Like you are
So
bright and shiny to me all the time.
thank you. I just thought of, I honestly, the movie Moana just came into my head. And have you ever watched Moana?
I have, but I don't know why it's in your head.
Okay. He's a crab and he sings a song, Shiny. And he loves everything bright and shiny, but he's like this horrible beast who like eats everybody. But anyways, off topic again. So I have, even though I am 62 and you'd think I'd be like a professional at at being intentional with who I am, it's taken me a long time to be intentional with who I am, because I think that so much of my life I was trying to be something else, right? Either something that I thought I should be because I saw it someplace else, or that someone else told me I should be. And I think that it's an interesting thing that, I mean, I was born in 1958, and when you think about it, women could not have credit cards, their own credit cards, until the late 70s, I believe. Like they couldn't have their own.
Yeah.
And we know how I am with, well, some of you know how I am with credit cards, so maybe that's not such a great thing. But the whole fact that credit or that kind of spending,
Or even just
so
schools were still segregated.
exactly. So it's taken me a long time to actually get back to the person who I know I am. And I think that it goes back to sort of like, that younger version of yourself sometimes is your true self, and you just
Mhm.
push them away and put them in their little room, and then you try to be someone else.
Well,
And
and
I
I
can
think it's
remember,
more than that though. You're conditioned, you're
you
taught,
are
you're pushed.
absolutely. And when I first became a supervisor, I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable because I was trying to be someone who I wasn't. I was trying to be a supervisor and how you should be a supervisor. And it was one of my nephews actually who said, why are you like being a half-assed version of yourself? They didn't
Oh
hire
wow.
you. Yeah, they didn't hire you to not be yourself. They hired you because you're you. So like be your full-assed version. And the minute that I could do that and just be myself, and part of that was like laughing really loud and trying to make stupid jokes and being vulnerable and being open with people and wanting them to talk to me and just finally being myself. I became the supervisor I was always meant to be, but
And
more
isn't
so
it
than that.
funny, the things that we police, sorry to interrupt, but the
No,
things that
no.
we police ourselves on are the
Yeah.
things that make people fall in love with us
Honest to
on so
goodness.
many levels. I once worked with a woman who she ate at her cubicle, and we had an open air thing every day because somebody complained about her laugh in our open air break room, that during lunch her laugh was too loud.
Oh,
And I think telling somebody that they talk too loud or criticizing their laugh in any ways is one of the meanest things you can do to someone, because your laugh you don't make that, like it just comes out. It's one of the
no.
most
Right?
natural things about you if it's a genuine laugh. So
Yeah,
I love that you decided like and being open, like that helps people trust you more. Like it makes you a better supervisor. But isn't it
it
funny? That's
did.
one of the first things we decide. I can't share things about myself. I can't laugh
Right.
too loud. I gotta be
Right.
serious. What I talk about in the
Which, of
office is
course,
limited.
yeah. And then that just, I mean, then I was better able to, of course, be more intentional with who I was. as just a human being. But I think that we're constantly evolving, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to open ourselves up to being intentional to the new evolution of ourselves, to this next level of ourselves. And I'm not always good with that. And when you first asked that question, I realized, like, it literally, I was like, crap, am I being intentional? Like, am I actually being intentional right now? And there are times when, like, on social media, I police myself. And I mean, sometimes you should police yourself, right? But, but yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm glad you asked it. And I'm going to dig deeper into it.
I love that. I find for myself that I'm intentional with who I'm not. Like I know who I don't want to be. You
Okay.
know, I don't want to be cruel. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be selfish. One of the main pieces of feedback that I've gotten from people in the past year and thank you cards or just like different messages is everyone's just been talking about how thoughtful I am. And I
Oh,
think that's just a
always.
thank you. I think that's just a byproduct though of me wanting to make sure other people have space and can fully be themselves. But when it comes to other things, I focus so much, or I have been, like my growth throughout the shadow work, the growth I have seen myself that I can give myself credit for is I'm far less reactive in my relationships than I ever was. And
Mhm.
so before I used to spiral and feel bad about how I acted, in certain family situations or certain colleagues, customers, things like that, because at the core of it, I was just reacting. And so I've gotten better at, like I said, what I'm not. But how intentional am I with who I am? And what I'm also kind of struggling with, or not struggling, but just kind of considering is, how I want to be genuine and authentic. And so does that mean that I'm a different person to a stranger than a neighbor, than a partner, a friend or parent, a sibling?
Mm.
I don't have children yet, but how consistent are you? Definitely there's different levels of intimacy within all of our different relationships. But I find that, the person I am is slightly different depending on who I'm interacting with. And
Well, I'm not so sure that that's a bad thing because I think sometimes,
we have roles that we play in life.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But wh- so is that a concern that you think like, oh, I'm not being authentic because I'm being a little bit different with this person than with that person?
Well, I think overall it's just, is my persona, being who I am and being fully there? Like, does it matter? So
Okay.
definitely there are different boundaries that you're going to have with your boss, with the CEO of your company,
Right.
than you're going to have with your neighbor.
Right.
But at its core, I'm a pretty informally formal person. So like formally, I like to know what roles we're playing. I like to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do, but I'm pretty informal within those boundaries.
So are you just talking about work or are you talking about life?
Well, kind of in life, I'd say in life, yeah.
Okay.
I like my rules. I like to know what the rules are so that I can follow them.
Got it.
But, I still, when I'm, where we work, we don't have a CEO, but we do have a top guy. And I'm the same. The reason why I get to be in the roles I'm in, the meetings I'm in, the projects I'm on, is because I'm not intimidated by people at that level,
Right.
that I'm working with the top of the organization, those
Mm-hmm.
around. And so I do know that I am kind of genuine and authentic, that I don't feel the need to kind of portray myself a certain way. But at the same time, I understand that the world that we work in, sometimes you do have to portray yourself as a certain role in order to be allowed certain responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where I struggle, where I don't want it to feel contrived, fake, or forced. And sometimes when I try and fulfill those stereotypical roles, kind of like you were talking about with your supervisor experience,
Mm-hmm.
um, is that being genuine and authentic, or is it just playing the part?
Well, how do you feel in just like everyday life? Even though I realize we're in quarantine and it's limited
Yeah,
with who you're around, but like before quarantine or something like that. Like, are
I
you
feel it's not super intentional. It's more like being on autopilot, and that's what's I feel like attracted me to the concept of the glow up, and then now to the brighten up is um, bringing it to be more intentional. So I'd like to share a poem, if you don't
yeah.
mind. So again, I'm kind of thinking about, how intentional with the person you are kind of also led me to, naturally then, are you who you want to be? And then what kind of person do you want to be, Tracy? Like, do you know that? Have you thought about that? I think that's the first part of being intentional, is knowing what you
And so
want.
you're still kind of struggling with that, right? Or maybe
I'm thinking about it.
struggle's the wrong word. I'm sorry about that.
I will say I like who I am, and other people seem to
Right.
like me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think I know who you are. So
yeah,
it,
I feel
but
like
we don't necessarily know who the other person actually wants to be, who they want to
yes,
brighten up to be, right?
yes.
Okay.
So I heard this poem by Unheard Words on TikTok. I'm only going to read part of it, but it, well, I'll read it and then we'll share some reflections on it. I'd love to hear what you think about it as well.
Yeah.
I admired her because she was the type of person who walked through the world as if the Greek gods and goddesses could not touch her. When she dismissed someone, she did so in entirety, like a mighty general overseeing an army that gave orders and swept the board, invincible in every sense of the word. She walked with her chin up, no matter her position, like a rebel who had gotten caught after a failed mission and decided to die in dignity.
I want
Yeah.
to cry.
What's your immediate reaction? What makes you want to cry?
All of it. But mainly, she walked with her chin up, no matter her position, like a rebel who had gotten caught after a failed mission and decided to die in dignity. I mean, wow. But even the beginning, as if the Greek gods and goddesses couldn't touch her. I
Yeah,
mean,
who
can you
doesn't want to
imagine
be
that?
this person? I mean, first of all,
Right?
man or woman, we don't necessarily have to gender it. I mean, my
Right.
immediate reaction, kind of something I've been thinking about, but I didn't want to limit the show to it, is what kind of woman do I want to be? But also what kind of person. And so reading this now, to me, it's about character. I don't want to be this person in the poem. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing, but it sounds like this person has a strength of character, that it can be
Right.
so easily seen and described, and that when you read this person's perception of her, it's so clear that she knows who she is and she just fully lives in that. And that's what I'm striving for.
So you want something that's maybe a little bit more actual, that someone else could say, this is Tracy. Tracy
Yes.
is this and this and
Or even that
this.
I could say. I
That
mean,
you
writing
could
about
say
me's
it.
is the hardest thing for me.
Have you
And I
tried
think,
that? You've tried writing about yourself.
oh yeah. Uh,
Okay.
I mean, dating profiles are the hardest thing in the world for
Oh
me because
God, I'm
I'm
so happy I don't have to do that.
you're
Knock
so
on
lucky.
wood.
Because everything's a sales pitch and trying to attract someone, and I go so much more off people's energies, and I'm so much broader than these categories that are in there, and I don't want to sell myself too much as something I'm not, like I'm so I
Oh,
just feel so much bigger than that world is going to allow you to be. But it's also, even if we weren't in the type of living situation we find ourselves in right now, it's just really hard to meet people. It's hard to make friends as
mhm.
an adult. I'm out of college, my friends are all married, not a lot of single friends. And I've been single this long. I'm willing to wait for the right one, Amy. I'm not just looking to check a box.
Right, right.
But so for me, what I want to work on, is that deep and lasting change over superficial change. So that to me is like kind of the core of the Brighten Up, is the deep
Yeah,
lasting change.
I love the deep lasting change. But what
But
kind of deep lasting change? Sorry.
so again, it goes back to that character development. So again, I like who I am, and I could probably sit down and define some things, but I want to be
Mhm.
more. I want to be more. I,
Like
I want
what though?
to. I want
What?
to. I want a
What?
poem written about me, Amy. Like, let's be
Okay,
honest.
that's what.
I want that poem to be good. I want that poem to make people cry. You were crying. I don't know. I want to go through this world more intentionally than I feel like I have been, especially this year. I can keep giving myself allowances for different things that happen at different times, but I think it's time to do the hard work, to do the study, and more importantly, to do the practice.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what a glow up is missing, is a glow up is kind of like, yeah, you did the hard work, but then you were just that thing, or you appeared at
Got
that
it.
thing.
Yep.
And so for
So
me,
Brighten
character,
Up is ongoing.
yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, so character development, or the potential that comes from character development, is
Mm-hmm.
having within us what we want to give to the world. And I think that's kind of where I'm struggling. It's around that purpose. What am I giving the world? What am I here for?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've found different ways to be purposeful, but is it really touching my soul? No.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just a seeker. I am a manifesting generator. We're bound to
But
have a trillion hobbies and
right.
be
Yeah.
interested in
But you know
everything.
what's interesting to me? And I'm going to go back to the episode we did on ritual and how we both want to be more intentional with
Mm,
ritual. And so it feels like it's all a practice, right? You have to make it a practice. You have to make it not necessarily a habit, but a ritual. So even your Brighten Up, your being intentional there has to be something around it that's almost like a ritual.
yeah. And, do what you can with what you have, with where you are. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt that said
Yep.
that. And so
Yep.
that's what I feel like I am in my day to day. And I think I strive to be at the higher range of that. But I want to take it to that next level, that next step. I want to, oh, what else has Teddy Roosevelt said? Live the strenuous life. So
Mm.
right now it feels kind of comfortable. It's time to get uncomfortable. And so it's that growth within you. Like, I know I can do it. My bio right now on our Instagram, I think, talks about how tenacity is my primary skill set. It is how I get through life. I just figure it
Yeah.
out. I just push through it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I want to be a little bit more intentional. I part of my job used to be, I supported a director and when a former employee, because we had lifelong employees, people work there 40, 50 years or more, and then they
Mm-hmm.
volunteer after they leave. So when these former
Mm-hmm.
employees would pass away, my job would be, once we heard about it, to go and read their obituary and then help craft a letter to the family that highlighted the work that they did. And then she would go in and add her personal experiences of that person.
Mm-hmm.
These obituaries were amazing and just made me feel like, what are you doing with your life? And one of my favorite ones, just talked about how she lived with grace and grit. And that, I've always
That's where
wondered,
that can.
that's where that
Yes.
came from, was
Yes.
beautiful obituary from somebody who lived a very long life. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a sad loss for the world. They're not here, but they clearly lived a long and wonderful life and touched a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm single. Like I said, I'm interested in dating. So am I, if I were to write down all the qualities of the person that I want, am I somebody deserving of that? I mean, that's a piece of that. And then if I were to be blessed with a family, what am I going to raise? And am I reflective of what I want to, not just that do as I say, not as I am kind of a
Do
thing.
as I
Like,
say, not as I do.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I want to do and say. So yeah, but it also goes back. You shared an affirmation, which it turns out is from a song that I actually love. So I feel
Yeah.
like it was imprinted, but be a blessing to everyone you meet. And I
Mhm.
think some people might hear that and be like, my life shouldn't be about other people though. It should be all these things should be more internal. It shouldn't be externally driven. But to me, I feel like it is internally driven. To me, it's about, not operating from lack, but operating from abundance. And when you do that,
Oh,
you're,
Tracy, yes, because
yeah,
I love that. And when you operate from abundance, we're not just talking about, of course, not just monetary things, but if you have
exactly.
an abundance of love, an abundance of, of everything bright and beautiful, and you give it out willingly to anyone around you, of course it's going to come back to you. Of course. So when people say it shouldn't just be about other people, well, it, honestly, and not to make it an icky thing, but every time you give something out, something comes back to you. And that's not why you do it.
That's energy. Yeah.
You just do it. But that is how energy works. Energy gets exchanged, like it's energy for energy. And if
So
you're
what
not
attracted you
willing,
to, oh,
oh, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, if you're not willing to be a blessing to other people, why should anyone be a blessing to you?
ooh, I like that.
Oh, you're welcome.
So what attracted you to that affirmation or that line in the song? Like, why did you decide like that's something for you?
I'm Tracy, stop making me cry. I'm going to try not to cry. It actually was around the time that my oldest was struggling with addiction. And I realized that I wasn't, and believe me, I love my children like ridiculous, right? But I was not acting like a blessing to
Mm.
her.
Mm-hmm.
I was acting outside of who I was because of the addiction. And I was not giving her the actual love that she still deserved and needed. And when I heard that song, not only was I thinking about myself, but I was thinking about her as well and how she was walking through the world and thinking about herself. And so I just took that and said, I'm going to make that one of my affirmations. And instead, in the song, it says, do I make myself a blessing
Mm-hmm.
to everyone I meet? So I changed it to, I make myself a blessing to everyone I know and meet.
Mm.
Um,
What an
and
amazing display of empathy
well,
during a really hard time, that it just helped you reframe the situation to not only be in your own, like it validated your own emotions, but then helped you help her, which I have to imagine had to improve your relationship, your
oh,
communication, your connection.
absolutely. Yeah. And just so everyone knows, she's clean and sober for, gosh, going on 8 years. 8 years. So that's that, maybe 7 years. It doesn't matter. Sorry.
That's
So
another podcast though.
yeah, that's another podcast. But yes, so it was full of emotion for me. And so I feel like every time I say it, I have that emotion and that feeling. And so that's why I think it's such, um, there's so much force behind that affirmation.
So when you first started using it, did you notice a difference in how
Mhm.
you acted with others, how others received you? Did anyone else notice?
Absolutely. I don't know if other people noticed or not, but I will say, just like you, when you wake up and have your bright and shiny days and you go out in the world and people react to you differently and it's sort of reflected back, that what happened for me when I first started using it is if I wasn't acting like that, you know, it would pop up in my head and I would reframe how I was acting or reacting to a person or a situation. And I like take judgment out of it and then come back in with a different frame of mind, a different frame of heart, right?
A different
Um,
frame of heart. Oh, I love that because it's easy to say I'm going to reframe it and then try and make you feel your feelings in a different way, but a different frame of heart is
I
really what's
just came
needed.
up with that.
I love it. We're going to do a whole nother episode on that now.
And so the whole thing, and I know we are going to do an episode on affirmations, but the whole thing is when you repeat and repeat and repeat, they just, wow, they just pop up in your
Reprograms you like
head and
crazy,
you're
right?
like, that's right, it does. And so I can, honestly, except for certain things, like I can be in a store and somebody can have their mask down here and it's just like, they're just doing the best they can. I'm just going to
Mm-hmm.
think that and walk over here. Um,
So would
yes.
you say
So
that, like now that we're talking about a brighten up and still kind of crafting and defining what that kind of
yeah.
concept is to us, would you say that that was part of a brighten up for you if you were to?
Oh, absolutely. You're right. It was absolutely part of a Brighten Up because it was intentionally changing how I was being in the world, reacting in the world, um, the relationship that I was having. And so that little tiny thing made a little difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe a big difference, who knows? You're right. It did.
So that brings me to our quote, a bright spot from a bright person. Today's is from Stephen Covey. He wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I know my organization does a training, a massive training on him, and that's how I was introduced to some of his work on character. But what your story just reminded me of is the quote is sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny.
Oh,
And again, that was Stephen Covey. And
that's,
so
yeah.
I think, that goes to, cognitive behavioral therapy of, change your thoughts, change your life kind of a thing. Once you get the thought in there, you get the habit. But to me, it's more than the habit. It's about that deeper dive into the character. If I have this
Yeah.
habit, what kind of person am I going to be or not be?
So what's the first thing that you're going to do or what has the first thing been that you've actually dug deep on to try to start this Brighten Up?
So for me, I've been doing some affirmations, so I'm excited to talk to you about that next time or next episode. But I I saw something recently where someone said that at night before they go to bed, they ask themselves questions because then your brain naturally tries to solve it while you sleep.
Ooh.
Isn't that nice? And
Yeah.
so, from my kind of intentions and affirmations and things like that, I created questions, to try and see if that'll work.
Nice. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm definitely still in the sow a thought, reap an action stage for a lot of it.
Would you
Um,
be willing to share a question?
yeah. Do you want to vamp while I find
Yeah.
it?
Well, let's
um,
see. I could try. Well, so
You did it.
yeah.
I'm here. Good
Oh,
vamp.
okay. Blah, blah, blah.
I mean, do you have something you wanted to say? Did I interrupt a
No,
thought?
no.
Great job. It worked really well. I found it right away. Um, so we'll start with kind of my intentions. So I can't remember if I've shared this with you, but so my goals or my intention for 2020 before anything, December 31st, 2019 was to live life out loud. And so
Woo!
I find myself in certain situations as kind of a shy, reticent introvert. I spend a lot of time alone. I don't share a lot about myself. I kind of become a chameleon. And I decided I'm gonna talk more. I'm gonna date more. I'm gonna, put myself out there more. I'm gonna try new hobbies, go out in the world, get out of my living room, get off the internet. And then the world shut down. and it's spending all this extra time alone with myself or only doing things virtually where I don't have the energy of another to play off of. One of the things I'm like, gosh, I don't know how to have fun. I spent so much of my formative years working multiple jobs, going to multiple schools, trying to achieve this goal that once I got to it, I realized I didn't really want it. Going to school for things I
Oh,
didn't want to go to school for, picking jobs because of the benefits and the pay, everybody goes through it, I'm sure. But, I think it's even in Grey's Anatomy where Callie, kind of has a breakdown about why everybody in the hospital sleeps around so much. It's because they just were big nerds until they were 32 and done with their residency. And so it was like, yeah, like, I mean, I have fun, but like, can I have fun on my own? Like laugh out loud fun, like not just, oh, I enjoy what I'm doing, but like, am I fun? I once worked with a guy that he was in that stage of his life where every weekend was a bachelor party, but he had friends with hookups. He was sleeping in castles and mansions on the shore and helicopter rides to tops of penthouses and just like, he was a cool dude, but not nearly that well off. And so I was just like, what do you bring? What do you bring to the party?
right.
And he looks at me, doesn't miss a beat, and he goes, I bring the fun. And I was like, oh, you do bring the fun. Like, I don't bring the fun. I went on a big trip a couple of years ago for a friend's bachelorette party. I was supposed to, it was somebody I know well one-on-one, but I'm not in her group, and I'm a few years older, and I know her through a person. So when I originally agreed, like, hey, I'm gonna go on this thing, I'm super excited to celebrate her. But the person that I know her through had to drop out because she got pregnant and she
Oh
couldn't
dear
go on this
God.
trip.
Oh,
So I spent way too much time in my introvert brain. Like, I love these people and I love her, and her friends by extension are all amazing. But I was like, what do I bring to the party? Like, I was asking them,
no.
and I was like, one of my friends is like, well, you're like the mom. And I was like, there are literal moms in this party. I don't need a mom. And there's already an amazing woman like project managing all of what do I don't bring the fun. What does one bring if they're not bringing the fun? Anyway, so that was a long way to say my intention for this year is I am fun, highly energetic, and light up everyone I'm around. So it kind of expounds on the blessing to everyone I
Great.
meet, but it
Great.
brings in that I want it, that bright and shiny energy I want to bring
Yeah.
in. And then just like maybe fun people don't think about being fun, but I need to practice it. I need to do the hard work. I need to dive into it.
So listen,
So
I
my
have to share something with, I'm
yeah, go
sorry, I'm
for
going
it.
to
I
interrupt you just
talk
for
a
one
lot.
little,
It's a
no.
two-person podcast. You share away.
See, you do bring the fun. So my mom decided, I have to bring up my mom every episode.
I love it. She's welcome here.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Mom. So my mom brought up the fact that she needed to have more fun. And this is like a woman who was still working at 96. Okay. So this was like, I don't know, she was 94 or something. Like, I need to have more fun. I should do more fun things. So she says to one of her granddaughters, she says, Sophia, what do you do for fun? And Sophia said, I do fun things. Like, that was her
That
answer.
was
And my mom was like, well, that makes sense. And I guess I
it.
could have gotten there. I guess I could have gotten there. So anyway, sorry about that little
I'm with your
mom,
mom on that. Like, what is fun? What do I
right?
find
Like,
fun? Yeah, but so the intention, so my goal is I want to have more fun. I just want it. You
okay.
know, it's not
Yeah.
like it's not. I just want it. But so
Yeah.
my intention, I am fun, highly genic, and light up everyone I'm around. So before bed, my question is, why am I always having so much fun?
Oh, Tracy, that's perfect. It's a perfect question because you're it's in the present moment, but you're asking yourself the question. So you're not immediately going, what are you talking about? You're not, you know what I mean? And then your
Exactly.
brain is like, ooh, why are you always having so much fun? And then I love that question. It's
So
brilliant.
yeah, so that's kind of where I'm starting, is that sow a thought, reap an action. And so
Yeah.
then on the action front, because I do have, like I said, like health and fitness goals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for me, it kind of goes a brighten up for me, and everybody can define it themselves. I'd love to hear how people would craft their own brighten up. But for me, it's that basic mind, body, soul. So for the
Yeah.
mind, be a work in progress and keep progressing. So did I read today? And was it not just doom scrolling on Reddit?
Oh,
For
right.
my soul, what does your soul want, and have you fed it? And then for my body, I don't know if anybody followed on Instagram, I was introduced to this fitness professional influencer, Amanda Kuntz, and her husband, or I think I just got her name wrong. Her husband passed away due to COVID complications. And throughout the whole
Oh,
process, he went into a coma and had all these different issues. But what she's really inspired everybody is, it's not, I don't have to work out, I get to work out. This body is a blessing. I need to move it
yeah.
because I can. I get
Yeah.
to move it because I can. And so that just
It's
so
such a
that's
healthy way to think about it.
yeah, and so it changed my personal goals from like I want to lose weight, I want to be a certain body type, I want to wear certain clothes, to just like I want to use this body because my actual goal in life is to age gracefully. So now instead of, oh, can I run X distance in X amount of time, it's I'm going to do some mobility drills. Like I'm going to make sure that if I only move this way, then I'm moving another way. So if I only sat all day, like what are
Mhm,
some, exercises to do to combat that?
mhm.
But my goal changed. Like my goal in like just I want to age gracefully. I want to get to 96 and be like my neighbor next door, still living on my own, still going to the grocery store, still driving a car, sharp as a tack, like
Yeah.
That's ultimately what this Brighten Up is too, is, I want to be as bright as I can for as long as I can, and take care of this
Right. It's not
vessel.
just for 2021.
No. And I think that's
Yeah.
the problem with my glow up goals, was it was so rooted in just the present, or in just like the immediate future, that it didn't really take into account, like, what are your goals after this? And so that's why I want to focus more on character.
Nice.
So for other people kind of feeling this and wanting to change their own character, dive into their goals a different way, just real quick as we wrap up, I have some kind of quick changes. And Amy, feel free to share any that come to mind for you, but
Sure.
just different ways you can be more intentional around what you want to bring into your life, character, who you are. So the easiest is the media you consume, your social media, your books, television, movies, radio, podcasts, etc. And also the amount of time you spend on absorbing content versus creating content.
Oh, you and I have talked about that so much. And it's when someone first mentioned that to me quite a few years ago, I realized that I was absorbing way more than I was creating. And I consider myself a creative person, and yet all I was doing was absorbing other creative people's
Yeah.
things. And it doesn't make you feel good after a while.
It's exhausting to just
Yeah.
absorb. A huge part of my job up until recently was just taking notes, was tracking what other people were doing and project managing, and just absorbing all this information. And I didn't create any projects. I didn't own anything of my own. I didn't have a say of
Yeah.
anything of my own,
Oh.
and then I'd go home and I would just watch TV and listen to podcasts and music and radios and
Mhm.
read books. And part of my problem was I didn't see myself as a content creator. I don't paint there, other than what we're doing right now. There wasn't anything I wanted to put out into the world at the time.
Mhm.
And instead I was like, you know what? Like, creating content is just having a good conversation, just talking to someone. That's
And
putting out. That's
honestly,
not just absorbing in.
creating content can be writing in your journal something. It
Yes.
could be writing
Cooking a great
3
dinner.
things, of maybe you write what you're grateful for, like 3
Mm-hmm.
things you're grateful for. Cooking a great dinner, doodling on a piece of paper, coloring in a coloring book. Like, it doesn't have to be for mass consumption, for other people's consuming. It can just be for you to get things out of you, to
To take
create.
what you've been absorbing in, mess it around a little bit, and then put it out into the
Exactly.
world. Like, here's
Yeah.
what are the chances that you're so your perception, what your hobbies and interests are, the people you interact with, and putting that in the pot and coming out with soup, like,
Yeah.
and just
Your
like
soup, Tracy
your
soup.
soup, Tracy soup. Again, like I said, the concept of a Brighten Up, we're still working on it. Soup
Yeah.
might not be a part of the final product.
Maybe it should be a
But
salad.
so other easy things, as we just shared earlier, affirmations and before bed questions, which we'll do future episodes on for sure. Those are the easy, kind of medium difficulty, the people you surround yourself with. So,
It's so
if
hard.
you're having
Mhm.
marital or significant other relationships, familiar ones, those are harder to change. Friend breakups are not easy to go through, but
Mm-mm.
if you want to change who you are, not everybody around you is going to allow that to happen. You got to picture yourself in family and marriage therapy. They picture yourself in a rubber band. So if you picture everybody that is having a great day-to-day impact on your life, whether it's colleagues, best friends, people in your family, and you start to move away from that core group where you've been standing, that rubber band is eventually going to snap you back to where you were, and possibly move everybody further back than they were in the process. So
I would add to that, though, that you might not be able to change the people around you, but you can change how you react to the
yes,
people around you. And that in turn
can change them.
yes,
Mm.
absolutely. I've seen it happen. Mhm.
Yeah. And as you shared a second ago, daily journals. So gratitude you shared. Some people just do like
Oh,
a 3-page
sorry.
free write. Oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah.
A 5-minute synopsis where you just like take 5 minutes and just write about your day, just what you did, what you saw, what you ate. It does not have to,
Okay.
I
I'm just
I
going
read
to tell you
Andy
something.
Warhol's journals and I was so disappointed. I
Oh,
thought a
really?
creative genius, and it was who he saw, who was at a party, and what he ate. I was so bored, so bored. But for him, he got that out every day, and he's seen as a creative genius in some circles.
There you go. So maybe he had to get sort of the mundane stuff out before he could free his brain and heart and soul up for the creative, cool
Yeah.
stuff, right? Maybe. I'm just going to say one thing. The
Hmm.
minute you said synopsis, I went, ugh. So as a fiction writer as well, and having to do a synopsis for a book, that's like, you just go,
Trigger warning, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So sorry about
And
that.
then some kind of harder, tasks you could start working on is again, doing that research, the study, the work, and the practice around your habits, your character, your personality, and your goals. And so weekly, obviously, we can't define those for you, and hopefully, some future episodes we can help you work through that.
Yeah.
But before you get to those points, ask yourself some of the questions we've asked today about what kind of a person am I? Was I intentional with that? Who do I want to be? How do I get
Yeah,
there?
you know what I think would be really fun is maybe, obviously not the next few, but maybe in a couple months we revisit this after the two of us have had some time to actually dig into it and
I love
just
it.
talk about it some more
Yeah,
and see
just
what's
reflect
worked for
on.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mentioned in our ritual podcast, I try and do, quarterly check-ins on my goals. I try and do I do like a mid-year personal retreat.
Yeah.
I do kind of a little personal thing on my birthday. So those are all great times to kind of check in with yourself on this. And then as we'll talk about in future episodes, we're going to start talking about kind of the wheel of the year and the different cycles. And so there are ways of working with the energy that's already around you, whether it's the
Hmm.
moon, astrology, wheel of the year, all that kind of stuff, to find those natural transitions in your life where it'll be easier than other times to
Yeah.
make these changes. So
And once again, I think that sort of goes back to what we were talking about when we were talking about like the new year, that it doesn't always have to be New Year's Eve that you decide to have goals or change the way you're doing something or reconstruct your life. You can do it intentionally, like every 3 months, or like we talked about with the wheel of the year, just different things like that.
absolutely. So with that, as we do every episode, before the card, I shuffled and pulled a tarot card. Just kind of my general questions, what do we need to know for the show today, or what kind of aligns? And I ended up getting the 10 of Cups. So if you're watching us on YouTube, oh, there's a glare. Sorry about that. I used the Raider Waite. Is that how you say his name? Or
Mhm.
the name of the deck? But so the 10 of Cups kind of shows a family happy with 10 cups in a rainbow. In relationship readings, it's like one of the pinnacle cards of just like happy ever
Mhm.
after. But
What
what I liked about the Biddy Tarot's, just kind of, forward assessment of what this card is. The first one was alignment. And I think that flows so well with
I
this
love
Brighten Up,
it.
is just trying to align with who you are and who you want to
Yeah.
be.
And then another thing that I love too is it also represents reaping what you've sown, which goes back to the quote that you had earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very apropos card. I really like
Yeah.
that.
So
Yeah.
if you're in some sort of transition in your life, it's a great time to do a Brighten Up, or if you're just feeling motivated.
Yeah.
But it's not something to force yourself into. So if you're not there yet, this is just a good time to, again, go through those questions. And next episode, Amy is going to talk to us about affirmations, which is just
Yeah.
a great start, or such a supporting, role in
Yeah.
who you want to be each day and what you want to receive.
I
And
will dig deep in that. And I had a very good teacher with affirmations, my mom, again. So she will once again be in the episode. But I'm really looking forward to talking about affirmations and how I see the power of affirmations and how it's actually kind of easy to make them a part of your everyday and to create a little habit that creates the habit of saying the affirmations. So I look forward to that.
I'm real
Um,
excited. You taught a course on Facebook on this one, so I'm looking forward to sharing that with everybody
oh,
and
you remember
hearing
that.
and learning
Thanks.
something new. Yeah.
Cool. Good. Good. So as we close out, we thank you so much for being here today. It was great. It was actually great to talk to you, Tracy. I learned a lot today, so that was wonderful. But you know what? If this episode spoke to you, your soul, please share it. We'd love it if you had the time, if you could go on whatever platform you listen to, if you subscribe, if you rate it, and a review is like, the pinnacle. It's so great if people can review that. We'd love to hear from you. So if you have any ideas about what you'd love for us to talk about, or if you just want to reach out, we love hearing from you. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for spending time with us today. And as always, have a bright and beautiful day.